They say Alaska doesn't just live on the edge of the map, it lives on the edge of the Earth itself. They say the land here breathes with ancient power, sleeping beneath the ice and waiting for its turn to rise again. And they say the big one isn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Beneath Alaska's majestic mountains and icy coastlines lies one of the most dangerous geological zones on the planet. The Alaska-Aleutian Subduction Zone stretches for more than 2,500 miles, a massive fault line where the Pacific Plate dives under the North American Plate. It's the same tectonic system that unleashed the 1964 Great Alaska Earthquake, magnitude 9.2, the second most powerful quake ever recorded in human history. That quake lasted 4.5 minutes, reshaped the coastline, and triggered tsunamis that traveled as far as California and Japan. But more than half a century later, experts warn that the big one could strike again, perhaps even stronger, perhaps closer to population centers like Anchorage or Kodiak. And the question is chilling. Is America truly ready for it? To understand the scale of this risk, you have to picture the Earth as a living machine. Deep under Alaska, enormous slabs of rock grind together, building tension for decades, even centuries. Eventually, that tension releases, not gradually, but violently. When it does, the landscape moves like liquid. Entire forests rise and sink, harbors drain in seconds, and the sea returns with deadly speed. In 1964, waves over 100 feet high slammed into coastal villages, wiping them off the map. More than 130 people died, not from the shaking itself, but from the water that followed. Modern Alaska is better prepared, or so we hope. Seismic monitoring stations cover the region. Emergency alerts can reach residents within seconds. Buildings in Anchorage are now designed with flexible steel frames to absorb violent motion. But readiness isn't only about technology. It's about psychology. Because no simulation can capture the chaos of reality. When the ground rips apart and lights go out, people don't think logically, they react. And the difference between survival and tragedy often depends on what they do in those first 30 seconds. Alaska's vulnerability isn't isolated. The same tectonic boundary extends down the Pacific coast, linking to the infamous Cascadia subduction zone off Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. Scientists believe these two regions are connected in ways we're only beginning to understand. Stress in one part of the fault can influence another hundreds of miles away. That means the big one in Alaska could set off chain reactions along the US West Coast, a terrifying possibility that keeps seismologists awake at night. Imagine what a repeat of 1964 would look like today. Anchorage, now home to nearly 300,000 people, could see widespread liquefaction, where solid ground turns to quicksand under buildings. Major highways like the Seward and Glen would collapse, isolating communities for weeks. The port, a vital artery for supplies, could be destroyed. In the worst case, tsunamis could reach Hawaii and even flood parts of Seattle's low-lying waterfront. And unlike 1964, today's infrastructure is more complex and more fragile. A single rupture could sever fiber optic cables, oil pipelines, and communication links critical to both Alaska's economy and America's defense systems. Scientists are trying to predict the unthinkable. The US Geological Survey runs advanced simulations of potential quake scenarios, combining historical data, satellite imaging, and underground sensors. What they found is sobering. A 9.0 magnitude quake along the Alaska-Aleutian Trench could unleash energy equivalent to 1,000 nuclear bombs. The shaking could last for over 5 minutes, and the tsunami waves could hit coastal towns within 20 minutes of the rupture. For many residents, that's barely enough time to run. The problem isn't that we lack warning, it's that we lack understanding. Studies show that even in quake-prone regions, fewer than 40% of residents know evacuation routes or have emergency kits ready. In remote Alaska, where roads are limited and communication towers scarce, that ignorance could cost lives. Government agencies like FEMA and NOAA conduct regular drills, and communities like Kodiak and Seward have built tsunami evacuation towers. But preparedness is uneven. In some fishing villages, sirens are rusted, batteries dead. In winter months, when snow blocks access roads, even helicopters struggle to reach stranded survivors. The isolation that defines Alaska's beauty also defines its greatest risk. The 1964 disaster taught the world valuable lessons, but memory fades faster than stone heals. Entire generations have grown up without feeling a major quake, and complacency, experts say, is more dangerous than any fault line. When nothing happens for 50 years, one seismologist said, people start believing nothing ever will. Yet the warning signs are there. Small tremors ripple across the region every day. Under the ocean, pressure is building silently. GPS sensors show the Pacific Plate still pushing northward at nearly 2 inches per year. Unstoppable, invisible, inevitable. These tiny movements are the whispers before the roar. If a megathrust event occurs today, the first impact would be local, but the consequences would be national. Alaska's oil pipelines, military bases, and ports are crucial to US logistics. Damage there could ripple through supply chains, energy prices, and defense readiness. Imagine jet fuel shortages for Pacific bases or shipping disruptions through the Arctic routes. Scenarios that could reshape geopolitics overnight. The big one would not only test America's emergency response, it would test its unity. Would distant states rally to help the frontier north? Would aid reach remote towns cut off by ice and landslides? Would communication systems survive long enough to coordinate rescue? These questions don't just apply to Alaska. They reflect how the US will handle any future mega-disaster, whether it's a hurricane, wildfire, or flood. There's another, quieter fear among scientists, that climate change may amplify seismic and tsunami risks. As glaciers melt, they remove enormous weight from the Earth's crust, potentially triggering rebound effects along fault lines. Rising sea levels also mean that future tsunamis will reach farther inland. In Alaska, where entire coastlines are slowly sinking due to subsidence, that combination could be catastrophic. The very ice that once protected these shores is disappearing and taking safety with it. Yet amidst all this danger, there's also resilience. Alaskans live with earthquakes the way others live with storms. They adapt. Schools practice drills. Homes keep emergency kits. Fishermen memorize high-ground escape routes. And in Anchorage, engineers are testing new shock-absorbing foundations that can shift without collapsing. The lessons of the past are shaping a culture of readiness, even if the threat remains unimaginable. Still, technology can only do so much. During a major quake, power grids will fail, cell towers will fall, and roads will crack open. In those moments, survival depends not on machines, but on people. On neighbors checking on neighbors. On volunteers who brave falling debris to save strangers. On the human instinct to rebuild no matter how many times the Earth tears it all apart. For many Americans, Alaska feels distant, an untouched wilderness. But the forces beneath it are connected to the same tectonic system that runs under California, Oregon, and Washington. What happens there is a preview of what could happen anywhere along the Pacific Ring of Fire. The 1964 Alaska quake helped scientists understand subduction zones. The next one could redefine them. And here's the haunting truth. There's no way to stop it. The Earth moves on its own timeline, but we can choose how we respond. We can build stronger, plan smarter, and remember longer. We can invest in early warning networks, community education, and infrastructure designed for survival, not just convenience. We can accept that preparedness isn't fear, it's respect. Respect for the planet we live on and the power it holds beneath our feet. In every seismic zone, the countdown has already begun. Whether it's measured in years or centuries, the outcome depends on choices made today. Alaska's story is America's warning. The ground may shake there first, but the shockwaves will reach us all. So as the ice melts, as the plates grind, and as time ticks quietly toward the next rupture, one question remains. When the big one finally comes, will the United States stand ready? Or will we watch history repeat itself under a different sky? Because when nature decides to remind us who's in charge, no one is truly far away. If you found this story thought-provoking, help us spread awareness before disaster strikes. Subscribe to Crisis Lens, like this video, and share it with others, to remind the world that preparation is the only defense against the power beneath our feet.